All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading up to New England to visit with Matt Burns, Director of Baseball Ops with Clubhouse CT up in Fairfield, Connecticut. Matt, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, my pleasure, my pleasure. You know, like, it seems like baseball world kind of hangs out on Twitter, and I found you guys on Twitter recently and was clicking around and, you know, just, hey, slide into your DMs, catch up with you real quick, and we had a nice conversation a couple days ago, and here we are. I'm anxious to learn more about Clubhouse CT, and hopefully we can sort of educate our listeners on who you guys are and learn a little bit about what you guys got going on. The first thing, I think, is just hand the mic over to you, let you introduce yourselves to the audience, and you know, and then do the same and give us the history of Clubhouse CT, and you know, and then move us from where you were to where we are today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. So, grew up in Connecticut. You know, started off my college career in Connecticut at Southern Connecticut State, a D2 school. Played 3 years there, had a redshirt year there, so 4 years total. Graduated, transferred to Franklin Pierce University up in Rindge, New Hampshire. You know, phenomenal D2 program. You know, we were ranked number 1 in the country for part of my last year there in 2016. Got to go to the College World Series, experience that, which was really cool. You know, had a couple injuries, finished up, grabbed my graduate degree. Then I jumped right into coaching right after that. I coached in the Futures League up. It's a summer collegiate league up in New England area with a team, the Wachusett Dirt Dogs. Fortunately, they don't exist anymore, but started off there. Was a GA at Franklin Pierce. Then I jumped over to another Division II school back in Connecticut, Post University, for a season. That summer, I managed a team in the New York Collegiate Baseball League. Then after that, I took a job at Sacred Heart University, Division I, as an assistant coach, and I was there for about 2.5, 3 years, right before COVID kind of hit. And then I jumped over to, you know, the facility travel ball side full time, and been doing that ever since.
That's pretty cool, man. You know, it's like you spent time on sort of both sides of this process. I'm assuming that the experiences from the other side, being on the college side, doing the recruiting, now benefits your guys who are going through the process that you're helping market. Why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe some things that you've learned from sort of being on both sides?
No, absolutely. So I think the big advantage is, and fortunately we're able to give that to our players, is we understand it's a very complicated process, right? The recruitment. How do you do it? There's different schools of thought. There's different experts. But what I'm seeing, you know, daily is there's a lack of really good information on the process, and just understanding how do you get recruited, essentially. And obviously it's different for each age. You know, a 15-year-old's recruitment process is different than a 17-year-old recruit's process. A kid with a 4.0 GPA and, you know, say a 1550, 1600 SAT, his process is completely different than a kid with a 3.0 and an 1100. And we're seeing in Connecticut, there's a lot of people who just don't understand timelines and how good you need to be to play in college, whether it's Division I, Division III, JUCO. There's just no one there to say, okay, this is where you fall in. This is where you should focus your time. You should reach out. You should do this. You should go to that event. You should be on this at this tournament. All that kind of stuff, you know, being on the other end, on the college side of it, you have a pretty good grasp of how the system works, and you can help steer your guys accordingly. You know, and like I said, all of our guys' recruitment experiences are unique. They're all really different in many respects. But I think just being on the other side, you have those insights of, all right, this is how it works, and we've had a ton of success doing it this way, and this is what we'd recommend for you, or this is what we see out of you.
Yeah, I tell you, I might take a little different. I think we're agreeing, but differently. There's some nuance to what you said, where it's not that there's not the information out there and available. It's almost like there's information overload, which can be very confusing. And so for that family, for that parent and prospect, finding the right piece of information is brutal. And honestly, and that's why teaming up with somebody to help hold their hand essentially through that process and say, hey, you're the kid with 1,000 and a 3.0 with this skill set. Here's the information that you need, versus the kid who, is the 1,400 in a different skill set. Say, hey, this is different information than the other kid, but this is the information. This is your path, and that's you almost become like a guide service, and you say, hey, this is how you're going to find your way, and this is different information for how you're going to find your way. Hey, before we kind of digress too far into this, into the weeds over here, you gave us a great sort of quick bio on yourself, but walk back a little bit and tell us about Clubhouse CT. Give us the foundation story. I know I've got you listed as director of baseball ops. Tell us about the owners and founders, when they got this thing off the ground. Sort of give us the bio of the teams and the facility, if you will.
Sure, no, absolutely. So Mike Porzio is the owner. He pitched in the big leagues for a little bit, had a long pro career, lefty arm. Came back after his playing career, was doing some training, decided, all right, it's time. I like baseball, not ready to give it up. So 2010, 2011, they opened up the facility. That's the same spot we're in now still, with a training central focus.
Okay.
The teams came later. The teams came 2-3 years after that, where, there was a big enough, pool of kids training. And they're like, well, we want to play here now. We come here to train.
Yeah.
Let's play here.
Sure.
So then the team started, 7-8 years ago. And they've just been growing ever since, and we've been fortunate to have, good staff people helping along the way. Some of them moved on to bigger and better opportunities, which is awesome. I think that's important. And then we've just been fortunate enough to get the players in year in, year out that are serious about baseball and really love the game, are passionate about getting better, passionate about achieving their goals. So we've had a good run, especially of late, with just really high quality players and good people too, coming through the doors and being a part of what we got going on.
How big is that facility up there? Ballpark.
So we got about 4 hitting cages. We got about 2 open turf spaces, smaller, 3 pitching tunnels. It's a good size. It's not too high, not like think of the furniture warehouse. It's a little bit lower ceilings, but it's pretty wide and spread out. So we have room for, we can comfortably get, 60, 70 kids in there at a time if we need to. That's pre-COVID. Now with COVID, it's a little bit scaled back just for, safety reasons. But we can get a lot of people in there and we can get a lot of work done.
Got it. Now, I'm always, I think I know the answer to this, and I'm always kind of curious. Most facilities are open to the general public, but I've seen a few that are almost like private clubs that are basically just for the players of those teams. I'm assuming you're the first one where it's open to the general public. Even if you don't play for Clubhouse CT, you can still come in here and train. Is that the case with y'all?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone looking to get better, there's an opportunity here to do so.
Which is, I would say that's the model with, 95%, but it is. It seems to be something that's sort of popping up in different pockets a little more, almost like private clubs, where those people are it's like all encompassing. It's like you pay for the team, but then you also get, you get all this stuff that comes under this roof as well, which is kind of interesting. So in 2021, heading into the fall, how many teams do you guys currently have? What age groups do you guys have?
So we're coming off, I think, our biggest summer ever. We had about, between the spring summer season, we had about 275 players in the organization. Which was a good number. We were busy.
Yeah, sure.
That's for sure. Moving into the fall, obviously it scales back a little bit. Got a lot of football guys, soccer guys.
Yeah.
Kids go off to boarding school. So it's we just lose some guys, which is fine. Playing two sports, keep them busy. Don't, not trying to burn them out. But we're about, say 200 people right now, players in the organization. Just for the fall, and then towards the end of the fall, we'll start looking kind of at next spring, summer again. Mm-hmm. It never stops.
Yeah. What's the youngest age group you guys go to?
We start at 9U, and really 9U is more training, not teams or leagues or tournaments, but just kind of like the hockey equivalent of like learn to skate. Almost, it's just fundamentals, catch play, coordination stuff. It's less of like, go out there on the field, really just start getting the motor going, and
cool.
Obviously keeping it fun as well.
Cool. And then so move up to the older age groups. How many teams do y'all typically carry in the summertime at, say, the high school age groups?
So putting high school at 15 and up, this year we had 8 teams. 9 teams. 9 teams this year.
Great.
Yep. A lot of players, and it's busy. We're going all over the place. We're traveling, but it's a lot of fun.
Are y'all mostly staying in in New England, or are you hitting the road and getting down to some of the bigger events in the Southeast?
A little bit of both. It depends on the group. The big thing is when we do scheduling, the scheduling needs to match the team and the goals of the team. For instance, if you're a 17-year-old and you have a 4.0 GPA and you have a 1550 SAT and, you're a pretty good ball player and you're like, I want to go play in the NESCAC. You don't need to go to Georgia.
Right.
Like the NESCAC schools aren't going to go to Georgia to look at you. You're better off staying right at home in New England and getting in front of the people or the level of school that you're gonna, that you're probably gonna end up at. Now our 22 scout team, that's our top group with 19 Division I commits, who actually just got ranked, 28th in the country yesterday by Perfect Game. They do travel. They go all over the place because they're seeking out that top national competition, so they can just keep pushing the ball forward.
Wait, repeat that. Repeat that for those people who may have been dozing off a little bit. A little team from Fairfield, Connecticut, with 19 Division I commits. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a combination of obviously having the right guys who want to work and get better, and just I think we help them where we can, but at the end of the day, they're the ones putting the work in. We give them the information. They choose to do with that what they want. And fortunately, with this group of guys, they chose to take that information and run with it. So obviously, they didn't skip a lot of workouts and they got after it, and now they're seeing the rewards of that.
That's impressive. I tell you, when you said that, my ears perked up pretty quickly. That's that's kudos to you guys and those players. To be able to put a roster like that together is impressive.
The guys like it and they had fun with it, and it's a good group of guys too. They challenge each other daily. Practices were competitive. They talked a lot of smack to each other, the pitchers, the hitters, in a good, friendly way. And because they all understood how good they were. And they had good players on each side of them, pushing them even further. it wasn't like, okay, we have one really great player and everyone's just going to lean on him. Everyone pulled their weight. The Bill Belichick, do your job. Everyone did their job.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what is unique about baseball in Connecticut? I mean, there's got to be something that kind of jumps out beyond baseball in Virginia where I am.
Obviously, we're a cold weather state. I mean, that's a tough question. It's a cold weather state. There's not. It's going to sound bad. There's not a ton of great baseball in Connecticut.
Yeah.
There are good baseball players, but collectively, for me, there's way too many teams. The talent's way too fragmented. I'm not sure what it looks like in other states, but I know in Connecticut, for how small of a state it is and what the baseball participation rate is, it just seems like there's way too many teams in the area to really make it effective. And I think it's gotten watered down, and the quality of the product that's on the field on a given day is not great. Not to go negative with your question.
Yeah, no.
I've had of the market.
No, I'm with you. Like, I kind of wish we could. Maybe there needs to be a differentiation between the serious and the recreational player/team, right? So that we can funnel all the guys who are just doing this recreationally to have fun as an activity. Let's funnel them over to these events, and then we'll funnel all of the more serious and more talented players into these events. And then that way, there's still the same number of people playing. They're just, it doesn't create like this log jam. I don't know if that idea makes any sense, but
no, that would be awesome, because at the end of the day, I want the competition. Do I want to have to send my teams all over the place to get that competition? No, I would love to have a great, say midweek option locally.
Yeah.
Realistically, there's just not one available. We're better off inter-squatting each other.
Yeah.
Especially at the older groups, the only way our hitters are going to get better is seeing all those Division I arms.
Of course.
So we try to get creative in how we keep challenging the guys in between events.
Of course. So, Matt, let's jump into some of these sort of standard questions I've been asking coaches, and these always lead to and inspire other questions that lead us in a million different directions. But so this question originally was just, what book do you think everybody should read? But then I realized, myself included, like, I've got a 5-year-old. I'm not reading lots of books right now because I have a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of deep couch sitting, right? So you got to be on your toes around here. So I adjusted the questions. So what book, movie, website, or just resource in general do you think every coach should be checking out? What are you recommending to coaches?
I'm not a huge reader, but obviously with quarantine happening last year, I got a chance to read the Dynasty. We're in New England. This is Patriots country. So we all worship, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady before he left, and Robert Kraft up here. It basically was a behind-the-scenes look of those three individually, the relationship, the run they had before Tom Brady left. And obviously that's a very polarizing organization. And it's mixing sports and business a little bit together, but just how they had the success they did. Obviously, you have the Spygate controversy, you have the Deflategate, you have Bill Belichick just being the anti-fun, emotional guy, and the ownership, his relationship with Tom Brady. It's almost like a soap opera in a sense, but like a very effective one. Obviously, 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool behind-the-scenes look of, what everyone was trying to do in that organization, because they all wanted to win. just how they kind of went about doing that. And obviously I think Bill Belichick is just super interesting.
Yeah.
Everything that he does, one of the parts where like they were taking down all like the mementos from like a win. So players didn't get caught up in last week, but they were looking forward to almost like mind games. If you like, that they were playing with each other in the building, that Bill plays with the team, cutting fan favorite veteran players who've, it's kind of like put it like Game of Thrones. I don't know if you saw Game of Thrones, but anyone could get killed off at any time, and you couldn't see it coming. But no one was safe, and that was basically the Patriots locker room. No one was safe on that team from getting cut or traded.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just pulled it up, The Dynasty by Jeff Benedict. You can get it used on Amazon for $7. Go get it. While you're on Amazon, you can go ahead and get Eli Manning, The Making of a Quarterback, too. Go. Hey.
You have to plug the G-men there.
Yeah, you can't spell elite without Eli. Anyway, yeah, terrific Tom, isn't that what they call him? He's the best. He's the best. I mean, there's nobody better than Tom Brady except for Eli. So
I don't know about that.
So that's cool, man. I definitely want to check that out. Those guys are all. Yeah, I'm gonna get that book. The three of them. They're such winners with such different styles, and to put them all together is pretty interesting, for sure. Very good. Is there a second resource, a book, a website, a movie that you are telling your buddies about, your coaching buddies about?
A lot of it not a fixed resource, but we want to keep learning as coaches and keep staying current. Obviously, technology has progressed where they're finding out new things every day. Driveline's pumping out a lot of stuff, a lot of different places, the baseball ranch, all the different training places are pumping out new information, new findings, training courses, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a pitching guy. I'm a hitting guy. But I do like to actually read more pitching stuff, learning about spin rates, release heights, all that kind of stuff like you find on TrackMan or Rapsodo. I also am not a catching guy, but, I'm following on social media catching accounts and watching what they do, watching their YouTube videos, how they teach the position. Not that I'm going to be a catching guru.
Yeah,
I'd like to have just expand my information base.
Yeah. Do you have one off the top of your head? One of those catching accounts that's sort of like top of mind?
So it's a guy, Go Pro Baseball, and he brings on different guys who he's like the middleman, and he facilitates like the catchers who do have the accounts, or he does hitting, pitching, all the stuff, and they bring on different guys with stuff's pretty much the same. They have different nuances they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's presented like, yeah, here's what we do. Not you need to do this or you're not good.
Gotcha.
Just really good information. They provide drills. They cover a variety of topics, and I think it's good to just have even though I might never be a catching expert, just to know enough about that to help somebody, whatever needed to.
I'll offer up one. A buddy of mine, Zan Barksdale. He's one of the best in the catching space. Zan with an X. Zan Barksdale. He's as good as it gets. He runs CatcherCon, which is sort of the meeting of the minds of catchers and catching coaches all come together. He's the best. He's great. Tell me about a regret or a failure that changed the way you coach for the better. So a kind of maybe a negative of some kind that turned into a good thing.
I got a lot of those. So how much time we have? The big thing was coming out. I started coaching right away. When I was in my first year of coaching at Post, there were actually kids on the team older than me. Which was it was interesting. It was kind of one of those just things. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Big thing was there's not one way to skin a cat, basically. There's different ways to get desired results. It's not you have to hit this one way to be successful, or you have to run the bases this one way to be successful. There's variety, there's nuance to it, and I learned early on that my one way, or what I did for me, wasn't necessarily going to help everybody out the same. You had to be a little more of on the hitting side, for instance, you had to be a little more of a detective. Okay, you got to diagnose what's the problem, what are we seeing, do some research, investigate into this, and then, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's how it needs to look moving forward. It wasn't, here's my one way to hit, this is how it's going to be, and you're going to like it. I got away from that, like, my way or the highway type mentality, kind of opened it up to more of a dialogue. And are there a few things that I think are pretty much non-negotiables in hitting? Yes. But like I said, there's different nuance to it for each player, that it's our job as coaches to help them find what works for them.
Yeah, no doubt. It's when you're getting into the coaching thing and you find that something that you think works, it's very easy to fall into the trap of trying to do that same thing with the next kid, and the next kid after that. You mentioned a couple pieces of technology earlier, a couple of the tools. What are y'all using sort of in the facility and with the teams, as far as technology from the training standpoint, and are you using anything from a marketing and communication standpoint? Are there any apps or anything else that you're using?
No, awesome. So on the hitting side, a couple things. All of our hitters are on Blast Motion. It's something when you sign up for the teams. Here's your uniform. Here's your Blast Motion. It does a couple of things for us. Obviously, it gives great swing feedback. Basically tells the story of what the bat's doing throughout the swing. My personal favorite part of it is it lets us track from a central database on the computer who's taking swings when they're not in the building. You got that player. Hey, I'm working really hard. Well, you pull up their account. You took 25 swings last week. What do you mean you're working hard? It lets us keep them more accountable. Because realistically, I'd love to practice everyone 6-7 days a week, because I genuinely believe that's what it takes to be great. It's college, it's pro ball. They're practicing every day. At youth baseball, that's just not realistic logistically. Parents don't want their children to live at the facility. So they have work to do at home. All of our guys know what they're expected to do at home. And the Blast helps us see, all right, these guys are doing their work at home. Oh, these guys aren't. And, it just helps us keep people accountable. Also on the hitting side, we have Rapsodo hitting, we have hit tracks. For me, they're less of like teaching tools. They're more, they're fun. The guys like to see how hard they hit the ball. But they're not, just because you have a hit tracks in the cage doesn't mean you're going to be a better hitter. It's going to give us some feedback. Maybe, it's going to show that you can't hit the ball hard opposite field. You have a swing deficiency there, or whatever it might be. On the pitching side, we do Rapsodo, and then we jump to TrackMan, which has been phenomenal. And the TrackMan does hitting too, but we leave it more in the pitching area. But TrackMan's phenomenal piece of technology. It's radar based. All the pitch feedback it gets on the pitch qualities, the spin, all the axis, all the movement. And there's a video feature. I know you checked out our Twitter, put some up last night.
I did. I saw that video last night.
All that data popping up on the screen. And from a recruiting perspective, sending that to a coach, there's nothing more they could want to see besides seeing a player pitch in game. That video for us is just incredibly helpful, because the colleges are all using this technology, so the coaches know what those numbers mean. Yeah. And certain coaches know the profile that they're looking for, on on the pitch qualities. So I think, that's a really helpful tool for us in terms of helping get our guys out there and just giving the coaches all the information they would want. And then from there, the coaching staff makes a decision on if they want to proceed or not.
So you mentioned your Twitter, and I always do such a bad job of this. I should do this at the beginning. If you want to see the video he's talking about, the Clubhouse CT is their Twitter account, and their website is the Clubhouse CT. Same thing. So Twitter, the Clubhouse CT, and they posted up a TrackMan video. If you haven't seen these, just go to the Clubhouse CT and scroll down to. Just scroll through it. You'll see some guys. I'm looking at a few guys right now. Very good.
We also have our recruiting hub Twitter, which is something we made at the end of last year. Kind of got away from it over the summer while we were all running around. But now that we're back more in the facility, it's a separate Twitter account.
Separate Twitter. Okay, I want to ask you about this. I've seen a lot of organizations do this. My pushback on this is an organization grows their Twitter account and they go through this, through the effort of putting out the content and getting the followers. And then you say, hey, actually, we want you to follow us over here. Has it, or when you were actively using it, did you find that was a better tactic to have that separate page? Or do you get more engagement on the main page from college coaches specifically? So what's your feedback on that?
No, that's a great question. We're not necessarily looking for more on the recruiting Twitter. It's basically my intention was to follow every college coach I could find on Twitter, and just make that a college coach Twitter account, essentially, where we're not following Joe's mom and Frank's dad on there who just want to stay in tune. We're just following the college coaches, trying to get the college coach engagement. And
it's a very specific type of content there.
Yes, it's basically any type of, quote unquote recruiting video, a snippet of a swing with some data on it, a pitch, something from a game, that kind of stuff. And our thinking was, okay, if a college coach, a lot of coaches follow our regular account also. They don't necessarily care about, a youth player doing something well, or, hey, tryouts are next week, something on that kind of Twitter. We wanted to make sure if they locked in on that Twitter account, they would see what they're looking for on Twitter.
It makes sense. I've seen a lot of organizations do that, and I'm always like, man, you just spend so much effort growing this one account, and now you're got to grow a second one. But okay, it totally makes sense when you explain it. Cool. Let me see. What's one piece of advice that you'd give someone who's just starting a travel team or a facility? What do you tell that guy?
Be prepared to work.
Great advice.
It's not. It's like, oh, it's baseball. It's easy. Like, no. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of weekends. It's a lot of late nights. Especially this time of year, kids are in school, so you really can't start anything till 3 or 4 p.m. So you got to go later into the night to do more, and you got to be available on the weekends to do more. And then in the mornings when it's less busy, all the preparation stuff, all the behind the scenes businessy type stuff, that's when that happens. So you're wearing a couple different hats on that front, where it's not just show up, do a couple hitting lessons and leave. You have to run. It's a business at the end of the day. You have to run the business correctly, or you're not going to be able to help anybody. And then there's the baseball side to it. So it's almost two jobs in one. So if you're not prepared to sacrifice a little bit, you're not going to get desired outcome.
It really is. One of the things that always sort of impresses me is the amount of time required to run this type of business. It's okay. Yeah, cool. You think you could work an 8-hour day, and let's say it's this time of year, you're going to go say 2 to 10 in the evening doing lessons. That's an 8-hour day, right? But, oh, by the way, you're actually going to be in at 9 because, like you said, you got to do the other stuff too, the business part of it. So now you're going to go like 9 to 10. That sounds like a pretty long day. Yeah, that's a day. That's a day right there. So yeah, good advice. Be prepared to work. Be prepared to work. Hey, listen, if we gave you the magic wand, what one change do you think you could make to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
I kind of like what you mentioned earlier, and I was kind of thinking this also. If somehow, say for tournaments, we could match up the right teams against the right teams. That's obviously a very generic, general type statement. I think there should be, and maybe someone's trying to do this, if you have elite top teams with loaded Division I commits, they should be playing other teams that are loaded up with Division I commits. You go to some of these tournaments and you say you play 6 games, 3 of those games are against a team that, no disrespect to them, should not be there or should not be playing against, one of those teams. So you're going to a tournament and filtering through the lesser organizations or the lesser teams to try to get to those better teams, where someone could come in and maybe do it smaller. And I get that there's an economic factor to it, where go down to WWBA.
They don't need to do it. They don't even need to do it smaller. They don't need to do it smaller. This is so obvious that the level of positive impact by doing this is so obvious. We've talked about it on this podcast no less than 40 times. All they need to do, PG, PBR, all they need to do, they can have the big event with 300 teams, no problem. Just divide them into appropriate divisions. All your top teams, your loaded D1 program, cool, you're in Division A. And then so on and so on. And now all of a sudden, instead of running one championship for 300 teams, you're actually running 3 or 4 championships simultaneously. It's the most obvious thing. We've talked about it. I'm telling you, half of the episodes I've had, guests bring up the same thing. And the only reason I can think of that they wouldn't want to do it is because, could you imagine the pushback if you identify this team as a D-level team and they're going to play against other D-level teams? They'll be so sad. They'll be so upset. It's like,
yeah, they don't want to risk losing one team.
It's crazy to me. It would be such a better event if you could put all of the teams of equivalent players playing against each other. You will not see the blowouts that you're seeing in pool play. You're not going to see the stupid 4-inning game that ends 17-0. That doesn't help. The whole point of this stuff is like so that college coaches can evaluate players, right? Kind of hard to evaluate players when there's the enormous mismatches. So I agree with you.
Especially for a northern team too, we go down to like the southern teams are going to play 50, 60 games. Their season's just bigger or longer. The 4-inning game, it's like we're getting cheated out of playing. Our guys are getting cheated out of at bats.
100%.
Pitchers are getting cheated out of innings. It's interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with Prospect Select at all.
Yep, they do a good job.
New thing in the fall, the World Invite. And we were on the phone with them for an hour talking through our roster. They were basically trying to, it was an interview to see, are you competitive enough to come to this event?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the teams and they're posting the rosters out. It looks like there's not going to be a bad game there.
No.
And that's, if we win, great. If not, oh, well, we're looking to play the best teams. It's not about lowering the standard to try to chase a trophy.
Yeah, no, that's going to be, I would say, one of the top new events out there. It's going to be strong. Matt, this has been a lot of fun. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for any coaches or parents that might be out there, or even players that might be listening?
I'd say my biggest advice, leaning towards recruiting, it's get an honest evaluation from somebody. That's the most helpful thing that can steer your path moving forward. Somebody with no stake one way or the other to watch you play, to run you through a workout, whatever it might be, to get eyes on you that can say, all right, this is where you're at. This is where you stack up now. With work, you can get to here, but this is where you should be focusing. I think something like that can get people geared in the right direction.
Were you reading my Twitter account again? I tweeted this guy comes out of the startup world. He's a business guy. And so let me read this tweet. And this is from an account. I don't know what the guy's name is. He says, I explained my startup idea to a couple of friends before building it. They loved it and said it would be a huge success. Then we launched, and none of them used it. So in the end, I hadn't validated my product. I just validated that I had nice friends. And that hit me right between the eyes. And so I tweeted out, I said, if you substitute out a couple of words, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the recruiting process, prospects, and coaches that aren't honest with their players. You have, like, if you're a prospect, you got to go find those guys who are going to be honest with you. Golly, man. Listen, I got a coach here in my backyard who has told every single player for like 10 years that they're going to go play for UCLA. And they all buy it. All of them. They all buy it. All the parents, man, they're like, they're a puddle in that guy's hands. And they keep going back and getting lessons. And you know how many guys he sent to UCLA? Zero.
I was going to say, I don't think UCLA needs to leave their area to find.
Zero.
And that's the trick, because some people, either they don't know, or, some people mean right, but they can't do right by you. Some people, I genuinely think, are deceiving in this business. A lot of people come down to our place for an evaluation. That's like the first step. We take metrics, we watch the swing, we look at the video, we examine it. And some people, we're going to hit you straight. And some people leave my office angry, and they argue back. Well, my high school coach said this, and I was all region last year, and it's like okay, I'm just I'm one guy. I'm just you're throwing 75 miles an hour at 17U.
That's right.
No disrespect, but I don't care what your ERA was in high school.
That's
we have a sample size here of commits, and none of them going to the schools you named are throwing 75 miles an hour. Now, if you want to work, we could show you how to throw harder. No guarantees where you're going to end up. But, some people, I think, want to be told what they want to hear. And there are generally people who come in and say, just hit me straight and we can handle it. And because we need to know, because you don't get a do-over on it. So if you get misled or even duped, you're 17 and the phone hasn't rung yet. Yeah. It's like, you don't get that time back.
Yep. I just validated that I had nice friends. Like when I read that, I was like, bingo. Yeah, no, go find some people that are going to be brutally honest with you. That's I'm so glad you brought that up and ended with that. Thank you again for coming on and doing this with me. I tell you what, don't hang up, but I'm gonna stop the recording on that note.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
You got it.